Thank you for making time for our third TWG for our waste to energy bill. So before we start, may we request our Committee Secretary, Attorney Grace Salesa, to recognize our resource persons for today.
Good morning. I would like to acknowledge virtual presence of our guests and resource persons for today's technical working group meeting. From the National Renewable Energy Board, Attorney Mona Lisa de Malanta. From the Environmental Management Bureau, DNR, Mr. Nolan Francisco. From the Department of Finance, Attorney Jeline Patricia Guevara. From the Department of Justice, State Counsel Dave Florence Fatalia. From UP Diliman Environmental Engineering, Dr. Annalisa Rolion. From the National Solid Waste Management Commission, Mr. Crispian Lau. From the Public-Private Partnership Center, Mr. Ferdinand Pexon. From PPPC, Ms. Bea Quintos. From IPM Group of Companies, Engineer Arturo Gungon. From the Developers of Renewable Energy for Advancement, DREAM, Attorney Jose Layog. From the Metro Pacific Investment Corporation, Mr. Jose Maria Madara. From Noburn, Pilipinas, Mr. Glenn Imata. And from IPEN, Mr. Lee Bell. Attorney Tim.
Thank you so much, Attorney Grace. We hope everybody received a copy of our updated draft bill, which Attorney Grace circulated last night. So we're going to use the TWG draft as of 22 June 2024 p.m., which Jen will share to everyone right now. So we would like to thank everyone also for submitting their additional comments and position papers. Please rest assured that the committee will take it into consideration, especially for the parts that we already finished. I think there's one part that we parked, but we can just go back to that once we finish everything, or we can just request. Let's see how we will manage time for today. But the goal is to go as far as we can, and hopefully, if we can finish it today, that will be better. But if we won't, then we will have another TWG next week. Okay, so we ended in section 5 last week. So now let's move on to section 6, the role of the National Solid Waste Commission. So please allow me to read. The National Solid Waste Management Commission, the Secretary of the Department of Energy shall serve in ex officio capacity as member of the National Solid Waste Management Commission, which shall now have 15 members from the government sector. In addition to its powers and functions under Republic Act Number 9003, the National Solid Waste Management Commission shall. So, before we go to the responsibilities, there's a comment here from Dream that we should have a WT interagency coordinating committee, and even from MPIC that there should be a lead government agency in the implementation of the bill. I think the functions of NSWMC is exactly that. There will be no need anymore for the interagency coordinating committee, because if you look at the members of the NSWMC, we have representatives from DNR, DILG, DOST, DPWH, DOH, DTI, DA, MMDA, the League of Provinces of the Philippines, the League of Cities in the Philippines, the League of Municipalities in the Philippines, the League of Barangays in the Philippines, TESDA, PIA, and now DOE. Okay. Now let's move on to letter A, include a WTE strategy in the solid waste management framework. Any comments? Okay, letter B, develop and implement a program to assist LGUs in the determination of the potential of WTE facilities in their respective localities. We have a comment here from the League of Cities of the Philippines that the national government agency should provide technical requirements or guidance for LGUs to be guided if they would decide to pursue this WTE technology. I think this letter B would address this concern already. Other comments on letter B? Okay, let's now move on to letter C. Ensure LGUs incorporate a WTE strategy if feasible. city and municipal solid waste management boards, especially for clustered LGUs employing a common WTE facility, that we can delete the words operation of. I think that's a more correct term because it's not the operation of the boards that are being coordinated, but it's really just the boards themselves. Oh. There's also a comment here from DILG submitted to NSWMC that the NSWMC may not have the authority to change what is also agreed upon. Definitely, we're not giving the NSWMC that power. And then another comment is the NSWMC should be authorized to issue parameters and or guidelines to determine the feasibility of WTA arrangements for an LGU or group of LGUs. I think that's already covered by Section 6B in the program to assist LGUs in the determination of potential WTE facilities. Okay. Any
Okay.
further comments on letter D?
Madam Chair,
Okay, so the new letter,
yeah, Madam Chair.
okay, the new letter D. Yes, Sir
Yeah,
Christian.
yeah, yeah, we,
Sir, can you
we,
please make your voice louder po?
okay, yeah, can you hear me now?
Sir, louder pa po ng konti.
Yes, Madam Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes po.
All right, our proposal is coordinate with the provincial, city, and municipal solid waste management board because we don't do the actual coordination. So it has to be a collective effort and it will depend on which particular LGU is going to handle it.
Okay, thank you, Sir Chris. So our new proposal now reads, coordinate with the provincial, city, and municipal solid waste management boards, especially for clustered LGUs employing a common WTE facility. Okay, any further comments on letter D? Okay, no further comments for letter D. Now we'll move on to letter E. So for letter E, I think before we discuss this, especially for letter E, E sub sub what E dot one. If I can direct your attention as well to section 8D, which refers to the responsibilities of DNR, and section 9B, the responsibilities of DOH. Perhaps this is a question for NSWMC for DNR and DOH. Who is actually in charge of determining the standards and criteria for WTE facilities? Kasi this specific section, we actually patterned it after 5T, section 5T of RA 9003, which gives the NSWMC the power to determine standards, criteria, and guidelines. So Section 5T gives of RA 9003 gives the NSWMC the power to study and review standards, criteria, and guidelines for promulgation and implementation of an integrated national solid waste management framework and criteria and guidelines for siting, design, operation, and maintenance of solid waste management facilities. So we would just like to ask, because here in section 6E1, we're giving NSWMC the power to regularly determine, review, and publish standards, criteria, and guidelines for WTE facilities. But at the same time, if we look at section 8D and section 9B, we see here that we've given DNR and DOH the power to prepare guidelines when it comes to WTE facilities. Maybe we can hear from Sir Chris, who should be the proper bodies in charge of making the standards, criteria, and guidelines po.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, yes, this is within the functions of the commission to develop the guidelines, criteria, standards. No. What normally happens is that, like similar to what happened to the WTE guidelines, we developed in the commission the guidelines, which was later adopted by the DENR and translated in the form of a department administrative order. So I think we can leave this as it is because this is part of the functions of the commission, and that is where your interagency body is already present, no? And then once guidelines or standards criteria has been developed, this can actually be turned over to DOH and DENR for the necessary department administrative orders. It can be a joint order, it can be an independent order. That's my comment for that,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
So thank you, Sir Chris. So does that mean that it should be in coordination with NSWMC as well? Because I think what we just want to prevent is if ever there will be inconsistencies between the NSWMC issuance and the DNR DOH issuance po.
In the succeeding yeah, provisions, perhaps yes, just to align it with this one, right?
Sige, thank you, Sir Chris. So later, when we go to the DNR and DOH functions, we'll make sure that it will be aligned with this particular subsection. Okay, so thank you for that. So allow me to read section 6E. Regularly determine, review, and publish the following. Number one, standards, criteria, and guidelines for siting, design, operation, and maintenance of WTE facilities, characterization and composition of solid waste utilized as waste feedstock for WTE facilities to ensure emissions are consistent with Republic Act number 8749 and disposal of residues from WTE facilities, if any. I would just like to make a clarification. Should we include also all the items that we included initially in section 5B? And please allow me to read: pre-operation, waste acceptance, waste storage, pre-processing of waste, quality control, operational control, pollution abatement, emissions monitoring, environmental monitoring, occupational health and safety monitoring, decommissioning, closure, abandonment, treatment, and disposal of residue. Sir Chris?
Yep. I would propose not to put it anymore. It's too repetitive. I think this is clear already that the guidelines are to be set, and those are only part of the guidelines that would be developed.
Okay. Maybe what we can do is we can just make a reference to section 5B instead.
Yep, sounds good. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a comment here in our chat box from Miss John G. Madara from, I think this is MPIC, that we want to ensure that guideline standards that will be proposed by various agencies are cohesive and consistent so as not to cause any confusion in the implementation of WTE. Hence the suggestion to have a lead agency align all standards. I think we can just add to address that concern, we can just add an explicit subsection saying that the NSWMC is the lead agency in the implementation. What do you think, Sir Chris?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes. May we know speaking?
With this, yeah.
Hi, Madam Chair. This is John G. Madara from Metro Pacific Investments Corporation. Thank you for recognizing my comment.
Thank you, Sir John G. Okay, what we'll do na lang is we'll add we'll add a statement that the NSWMC is the lead agency in the implementation of the act. Okay.
Question.
Yes, Sir Glenn, apo.
I would just like to ask if it is within the mandate of the commission to implement a thing while it is a commission, and my understanding is they are policy making body, and at best they are coordinating, not really leading an implementation of anything. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sir Glenn. I think what we can do is instead, I think that's a wrong terminology, yung implementation. What we can have is, Sir Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, or please feel free to give your inputs. What we can say is the NSWMC will be the lead agency is in ensuring a streamlined guidelines and standards when it comes to WTE facilities?
Yes, I think that sounds good. Yes. Because if you see the way this is framed, the way this bill is framed, you will see that you have a lead agency, and then you have different roles as spelled out in the bill for DOH, DOE, DNR as implementing agencies. So I think, yeah, we just do the coordination. I think that's so okay as proposed, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So let's try to draft it right now. Let's just put it after letter D since we haven't. Let's put it after letter D. Shall be the lead agency in ensuring streamlined standards, criteria, and guidelines when it comes to WTE facilities, subject to style, of course, and we can improve this. Okay, so taking into account the comments of Mr. John G. Madara from MPIC, from Mr. Glenn Imata from Noburn, Philippines, and NSWMC's Commissioner Crispian Lau, our proposed new subsection is shall be the lead agency in ensuring streamlined letter D, streamlined standards, criteria, and guidelines when it comes to WTE facilities. Okay. Do we have subject to style? We can improve this. Do we have further comments on this new proposed subsection?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Yes po, Sir Glenn.
Oo. What section 6 item E suggests is that this law should move towards streamlining the standards, criteria, and guidelines. I don't know what's the objective of this if we are to streamline standards, criteria, and guidelines, because we are talking here of a complex and uh, relatively new to us, this kind of approach and technology in terms of waste to energy. So why are we going to streamline? And what we are going to streamline are the standards and the criteria.
Sir Glenn, the intent is to make sure that standards, criteria, and guidelines are consistent with each other and are not that all these things issued by various agencies are consistent. If the term streamlined, I think you're having issue with the term streamlined. We can change that into a more acceptable uh, term. But the purpose is really to ensure that there's no inconsistency uh, in all the issuances of the various agencies, because as we know, this will really be a interagency effort to implement the bill and to ensure that individuals and the environment are adequately protected. So yun po. We can just ano po, if you have a better word for streamlined, wala naman pong problema. But the intent is to make sure na consistent lahat natin na standards, criteria, and guidelines. Okay. Apo. Okay, we can subject to style, we'll just put a slash there, streamlined, consistent standards, criteria, and guidelines. We'll improve it. Anyway, we'll be sharing the copy naman with the body. So you can suggest a better terminology later. Okay, so our new proposed subsection is be the lead agency in ensuring streamlined, consistent standards, criteria, and guidelines when it comes to WTE facilities. Do we have other comments on this? Okay, now let's move on to letter F. Our new letter F, regularly determine, review, and publish the following standards, criteria, and guidelines for siting, design, operation, and maintenance of WTE facilities, characterization and composition of solid waste utilized as waste feedstock for WTE facilities to ensure emissions are consistent with Republic Act number 8749, disposal of residue from WTE facilities, if any, and And we can add and other number 4, Jen. And other guidelines pursuant to section 5B of this act. Okay. And other guidelines pursuant to section 5B of this act. Okay. So for letter F, we've added a new subsection just to for consistency and other guidelines pursuant to section 5D of this act. Okay, other comments. We see the comment of Attorney Mona from Dream when it comes to the new subsection E. Yes, we can incorporate that po. Can we go up, Jen, please? Okay, in ensuring streamlined standards, criteria, and guidelines when it comes to WTA facilities to avoid inconsistent or conflicting standard.
Ma'am, good morning.
Yes, yes, Attorney Mona, apo.
No, I was suggesting that it be put to be the lead agency to avoid inconsistent. But I think you this is better actually. If you put it at the end, but maybe just adjust to avoid inconsistency or conflict thereof. Or conflict, inconsistency or
Issuances na
conflict.
rin po. To avoid inconsistency or conflicting issuances.
Yeah, conflicting issuances. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that, Attorney Mona. So our new letter E reads, be the lead agency in ensuring streamlined / consistent standards, criteria, and guidelines when it comes to WTE facilities to avoid inconsistency or conflicting issuances. And for letter F, allow me to read it for the last time before we move on to our new letter G, to our F sub 2. Sub 1, regularly determine, review, and publish the following standards, criteria, and guidelines for siting, design, operation, and maintenance of WTE facilities, characterization and composition of solid waste utilized as waste feedstock for WTE facilities to ensure emissions are consistent with Republic Act number 8749. Let's just delete the word consistent and replace it with compliant. To ensure emissions are compliant with Republic Act. I think that's a better term rather than consistent because we want to make sure that it's compliant with the Clean Air Act. To ensure emissions are compliant with Republic Act number 8749 and disposal of residue from WTE facilities, if any, and other guidelines pursuant to Section 5D of this Act. Okay? Any other comments on letter F subsection 1? Now let's move on to letter F subsection 2.
Madam Chair, this is Mr. Paxson.
Yes, Yusek Pekson.
Yes, for F, small Roman numeral I and then 2, consistency or compliance with Republic Act number 8749. Well, laws are subject to amendments. So we would normally insert compliant with Republic Act number 8749 and its amendments or its amendments, something like that. To allow for future changes to the Republic Act.
Okay, siguro Yusek, ano na lang, for to address po yung concern, we can just add and other laws, rules, and regulations. Kasi usually po hindi natin nilalagay yung and future amendments. What we can put na lang po and other laws, rules, and regulations to accommodate yung future amendments po.
That's fine as long as we are covered in case that the the Republic Act is changed.
Okay, sige. Thank you. Yan. And other laws, rules, and regulations laws. And then we have further comments from the body. Yusek Bernie, for ULAP, for the inclusion of ULAP, we'll discuss it later. Let's just finish po. Yung letter F. Sige, we also have
Okay.
a comment from Mr. Liebel that instead of disposal of residue, we can put management of residues. Okay, let's change disposal to management. Okay, so let's now read our new letter F sub 1. Regularly determine, review, and publish the following standards, criteria, and guidelines for siting, design, operation, and maintenance of WTE facilities, characterization and composition of solid waste utilized as waste feedstock for WTE facilities to ensure emissions are compliant with Republic Act number 8749 and other laws, rules, and regulations, management of residue from WTE facilities, if any, and number 4, other guidelines pursuant to Section 5D of this Act. Okay? Any other comments on this particular subsection? Now let's move on to subsection E, Roman numeral 2. Standards, criteria, guidelines, and formula in computing for a fair, equitable, and reasonable processing fee for WTE facilities, taking into consideration the cost of construction, operation, and maintenance of the facility, as well as the potential revenue from the sale of energy output. We can just delete yung such as electric power and biofuels kasi I think dinilit na natin yung ganitong reference from our last TWG. This particular power of NSWMC, we actually just patterned it after section 5. Wait. 5N of RA 9003, which gives NSWMC the power to establish fair, equitable, and reasonable tipping charges and rates. So since we are not referring to the tipping charge here, we're just expanding the power of NSWMC to determine fair, equitable, and reasonable processing fee naman for WTE facilities. Okay, do you have other comments on this particular subsection?
Madam Chair, can we
Yes.
add?
Yes,
Yeah.
you Son, opo. Ay, Sir Crispian, yes, sir.
Yeah, we request to add after, well, if we're taking out examples, no, the such as, we request to add in consultation with relevant government agencies and experts.
Yes. Okay.
Consultation with relevant government agencies and experts.
Okay, we can add that in consultation with relevant government agencies and experts.
Yeah.
Do you want to include the private other stakeholders as well? Just to make sure that everybody can give their input po. Anyway, ano lang naman po ito, standards lang.
Yes. And relevant stakeholders. We can add after expert.
Okay.
The rationale here is because from our discussion, this allows us to hire people. I mean, the DNR to hire people as part of their work plan to hire experts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sir Chris. So our new proposal for Section 6, letter F, Roman numeral 2, standards, criteria, guidelines, and formula in computing for a fair, equitable, and reasonable processing fee for WTE facilities, taking into consideration the cost of construction, operation, and maintenance of the facility, as well as the potential revenue from the sale of energy output in consultation with relevant government agencies, experts, and stakeholders. Okay, other further comments on this subject?
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is Yusek Hudson. Sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So who is first, Madam Chair? Yes, thank you again, Madam Chair. Well, we anticipate, or at least the PPP Center, Public-Private Partnership Center, anticipates that uh, WTE projects would be implemented through public-private partnerships, at least perhaps some of them, not all. Now, in cases where we do this through a public-private partnership, yes, we do need these guidelines, these standards, these criteria and guidelines, because this will level the playing field, so to speak. As proponents compete for the project, they have to adhere to the same set of standards, criteria, and guidelines. Inevitably, these standards, criteria, and guidelines also become part of the contract. And what that implies is that when the project is tendered or bidded out, then these standards, criteria, and guidelines become part of the tender documents. Now, what I am coming to is how we arrive at the reasonable processing fee, because that is also part of this subsection. We believe that a reasonable processing fee is arrived at when the project is tendered competitively in an open and fair manner. That means no single party is being favored, and where the competition is a level playing field. That's why I referenced the standards, criteria, and guidelines earlier. So when a project is being bid out, you don't have a fee established, a fixed fee already established in the beginning, because this is something that proponents would compete for. They would actually try to outdo one another in lowering the fee that they would offer, subject, of course, to complying with the standards, the criteria, and the guidelines that will be set. So what we are proposing that in the case of public-private partnerships, yes, the National Solid Waste Commission would set those standards, criteria, and guidelines, but let the tendering process under the BOT law set the processing fee, because this could be the bid parameter for competition among the private proponents.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's what we would like to emphasize.
Thank you, Yusek Pacson. If I remember correctly, the reason why this particular subsection was included, apart from it being in RA 9003, is I think in our preliminary meetings with stakeholders and even discussions with LGUs, I think there's a COA uh, limitation in that some of the stakeholders we've talked to were saying that the tipping fee cannot go beyond, I think, 600 per ton, or else it will be questioned by COA. I think that's the reason behind this. But definitely, this is not intended. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a commercial agreement between the parties as to how much the processing fee would be, subject to bidding rules, if subject to bidding rules, of course. But to address your concern, this is not going to be mandatory. These are just guidelines in how to compute it. But of course, at the end of the day, it's the bid documents, or it's the parties who will decide how they want to compute the processing fee. This is really just a reference po. Siguro we can hear from Sir Chris. And then if I remember correctly, Sir Glenn, you also, wala pa. Okay, Sir Chris muna po.
Yes, ma'am, I have. Later na lang after ni Christian.
Sige po, after Sir Chris, si Sir Glenn.
Can I add something, Madam Chair?
Yes, Yusek Pacson. Yusek
Yes,
Pacson, Chris.
we shouldn't lose the value of competition. So when parties are competing for let's say for your business, they will compete hard to offer the best value. So already fixing what the fee is at the beginning removes competition. What else would they compete on? They have already set the standards, the criteria. So what else do they need to compete on? So the idea with competition for public-private partnerships really to maximize the value that government can obtain by awarding the project to the lowest offer for processing, but enforcing strict guidelines, standards, and criteria. But on the other hand, Madam Chair, there is also the issue of future fees. What you set in the beginning will not necessarily be. Sorry, nag-echo. Someone's someone's microphone is causing an echo. Okay, let me
Maybe
try again.
request the other participants to kindly mute themselves. Yes.
Yes, there is a need to regulate future increase adjustments in the peaking fee. There is normally a body that would regulate. For water, that is MWS. For energy or electricity, that is the RC. So they take care of regulating, fees and approving applications adjustments in fees in the future. We seem to have missed this in our
Okay. Sige, Yusek Pex, Sir Chris.
Yeah, I can understand where you. I think there's an echo. Somebody might have it open at the same time somewhere. That's why we are having an echo. It's gonna be tough talking. Like. Anyways. I support USEC Pexon because I do understand that the negotiation can even be lower the formula that has been. Yeah, I think that's the issue. If we set standard for the computation of tipping charges or processing fees, then it removes the flexibility processing fees from what I would suggest is to have a clause where you exempt the guidelines if the bid amount of a proponent is if it's
Sir
lower.
Chris, I think
If it's lower.
Can everyone clear? Is it clear already, or are we still having technical issues? Can everybody hear us sufficiently?
not me, Madam Chair.
There's still an echo.
Okay, I think it might be a factor of our internet speed.
Madam Chair, it happens when two devices connected.
Two devices. Yeah, there's only one connection from our end. Ano na lang, we'll speak slower na lang so that it's clearer. Okay, and then I'll make my voice louder din po. To address the concerns, we do recognize that at the end of the day, we want competition to work in this bill. The purpose really for this, for Roman numeral 2 and 3 is, as earlier said, is an expansion of RA 9003, and then to address the COA issue that was brought up before in our consultations, but it is not meant to be the basis for the processing fees for WTE facilities. Siguro to address the concern of Yusek Pekson and Sir Chris, what we can do is we can just change it to suggested guidelines, suggested criteria, guidelines, and formula in computing for a fair, equitable, and reasonable processing fee. That this way also, we can assist our LGUs when they negotiate with developers. But please let us know if it will address your concern po. But in the meantime,
Madam Chair,
yes, Yusek Pekson. Apo.
yes, as our standards, criteria and guidelines, the solid waste division should provide that. It I don't agree with suggested. It should be the minimum. Standards, criteria, guidelines. That has to be followed. Uh, proponents who would like to impose stricter standards on themselves would that's okay. But they have to conform with the minimum standards, criteria, and guidelines set by the National Solid Waste Management Commission. Again, this is about leveling the playing field.
Sige. So, just to address the comments of Yusek Pekson and Sir Chris, so we will add the term minimum so that these are the minimum standards, criteria, guidelines, and formula. Okay, now let's listen to Sir Glenn. And then we actually have a comment from Attorney Mona in our chat box. So we'll start first with Sir Glenn, Mr. Imata, and then Attorney Dimalanta.
I don't know how to put this in words, but I don't see that we are also, or rather this bill is into consideration the capacity of the LG to pay or enter into a contract with operators, because I remember one of the rationale this bill is that are having difficulties in their waste management due to expensive or high sanitary landfills. And that includes also TPs, which is the one of the major factor in solid waste management of a particular LGU. So my worry, if the processing fee being referred here and setting criteria, it turned out that it is now much higher than the previous cost fee. Now would that constitute a processing fee?
Okay. Sir Glenn, please correct me if I'm wrong, because we can't get what you're saying completely because of the echo. I think it's really because of our internet speed, and hopefully it will improve in a bit. I think, sir, the concern, please correct me if I'm wrong, the concern that you raise is what if the processing fee is actually more expensive than what is currently being done by the LGUs? How can the LGUs afford it, if ever? Tama po ba yun yung concern na what if it's higher? What if
Yes,
it's higher
yes,
po?
yes,
Oo.
correct.
You,
Yes, that's correct.
yes po. I think ano naman po, wala naman pong requirement for them to, 'di ba yung nilagay natin, if we go later sa rules ng LGUs, there's no requirement naman po na dapat mag-WTE sila. We said na if it's feasible, they should include the WTE strategy in their local solid waste management plan. In fact po, ito, yung minimum standards, criteria, and guidelines, is really to guide them also in their decision making if they will pursue WT or not. Kasi if they see the minimum standards guide criteria tapos makita nila yung reference processing fees, if it's something that they cannot afford or wala silang makuhang developer na that can fit their budget, it will really guide their decision po. Yung purpose naman nito is, yun nga, we want to guide them in their decision. At the same time, tama po yung sinabi ni Yusek Pacson na we want it to be an even playing field for everyone. Klaro, can you hear us po clearly? Kasi may echo din
Yes,
sa
from
back
your,
end, narinig namin.
from your end, okay. Walang echo. Walang echo.
Oo.
Kapag kami yata ang
Oo nga, sir, tama po kayo. Kapag yung participants yung nagsalita, may echo. Ano na lang po, Sir Glenn, siguro yung concern mo later for the LGUs, we'll make sure that later pag pumunta sa LGUs, ma-address natin yun na at the end of the day, they get to decide po. But ito naman, it's really just to guide them. Okay, Attorney Mona?
Yes, hi. I'm not sure
Yes.
how clear this would be, but I quoted in the chat the current language that is currently Section 5 already, Part 9003. So it seems that based on that language, there is already that authority of the commission, and in fact, it is more strict because it requires notice and hearing. Is our intention now to relax that authority because the notice and hearing is no longer there, and to add that qualifier on potential revenue. Are those the two objectives? To add to that, maybe provide context. I would recommend that take out the qualifier potential revenue from energy output because that depends on the action of ERC and the National Biofuels Board. So it will inject more uncertainty in the pricing of processing. That's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Mona. Apologies to everyone because unfortunately, we cannot fully appreciate what you're saying because of the echo. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to try to restart the system and see if we can improve it by restarting. So we'll restart the system right now. So we'll end the meeting, and if you can please rejoin again. Let's just see if this will address the echo po so that hindi naman po masayang yung insights that you're sharing. Sige, we'll restart lang po right now. clarify that it's the revenue from output should be taken into consideration in determining the minimum standards. Kasi if not po, it will not really capture the true cost. Yung mangyayari is we're setting a processing fee na hindi naman realistic. So I think yun yung reason. Tama po ba, Sir Chris? Based on what you said?
Yes, and actually, setting the minimum standards also protects the LGU from overpricing. I think if you look at Section 5 of RA 9003, the main objective really is pollution or overpricing, where the Commission is allowed to look into it and step in if the tipping charges, no, in that case, is actually overpriced.
Okay. Thank you po.
Thank you, Attorney Mona. Yung siguro to address lang, ano naman to, these are just some of the things that they should take into consideration. Add na lang yung among others. So, based on everyone's comments, this is our new proposal. Minimum standards, criteria, guidelines in determining a fair, equitable, and reasonable processing fee for WTE facilities, taking into consideration, among others, the cost of construction, operation, and maintenance of the facility, as well as potential revenue from the sale of energy output. Do we have other comments po? Okay, now let's go to Roman numeral number 3, reference processing fees for various kinds of WTE facilities. Sir Chris, do we still need this considering now we already determined the minimum standards? Kailangan pa ba natin ng reference processing fees po?
No more. I think that can be taken out already. It's covered under subsection 2.
Okay, sige po. Anyway, minimum standards naman, so there's no need for this. I think naman, Sir Chris, if ever the LGU requests for assistance in computation, NSWMC can assist on that naman po, based on itong yung Roman numeral number 2.
Yes, yes. And I think when we do the guidelines or when we set the minimum standards, we can frame it already, but it can't be cast in stone. To put references on processing fees, it can differ from area to area.
Sige
Question
po.
of concern.
Yes, Sir Glenn, apo.
Just what happened if let's say there's already an agreement on the processing fee, and then later on the LGU is no longer capable of sustaining what were agreed upon during the negotiation period. So what will happen? And also, what if the LGUs, let's say after 2 years with their experience in WTE, decided to do otherwise and shift to other modes of waste management? So what is going to, can they revise their solid waste management plan or approach?
Sir Chris, perhaps you can provide an answer po.
Well, basically, if the question is as to whether or not an LGU can change its mind after 2 years, it's now you go back to the contractual obligations of the LGU. My response would be yes, an LGU can always revise their plans, okay, as they see fit. But then if you go back to the contractual obligations with the proponent of the WTE.
So that's really a big problem for LGU because they will be snapped in and adhering to the obligations of the contract. It's only suggest that they will be forced to continue with the ongoing contract. That's the problem. And if ever, how long or how many years are we talking about?
Sir Glenn, I think this yung situation that you're bringing up, this is not unique to WTE naman po, it applies to all contractual obligations of LGUs na 'di ba biglang umakyat yung presyo or ganoon, contractual arrangement naman po 'yon, ng LGU. At the same time, it's really the wisdom of the LGU. It's their decision whether they want to go into this or not. And, it's their decision as well kung gaano kahaba. At the end of the day, we're not trying to substitute our judgment with the judgment of the LGUs po. Just like any other commercial endeavor that the LGUs enters, it's their discretion po. Parang the intent of the bill is really just to provide a framework, if ever they want to go into WTE. So yung concerns po that you're bringing, at the end of the day, ano po, it's applicable to all contractual arrangements of the LGU, and it's their decision po. Hindi natin masukat po yun.
Can we hear somebody from the DILG with regards to that?
I think we have someone from ULAP. Sir Bernie, yung suggestion niyo po sa 6D, we will discuss that po later after natin matapos yung letter G. Pero baka Sir Bernie, you can comment on that po, yung about sa contractual obligations ng LGU.
Well, I agree with you that contractual obligations can always be renegotiated in
Pero
the
can
course
you
of the
please
life.
make your voice louder po? Hindi po naririnig.
Hello?
Yes, Sir Bernie. Pwede pong mas malakas pa po.
Paano kaya?
Nearer sa mic siguro, Sir Bernie. Yan, okay, better po.
Hello?
Yes po,
Can you
go
hear?
ahead, Sir Bernie, opo.
Yeah, I agree with the observation that it's within the power of the LGUs as corporate entities to enter and to renegotiate contractual obligations during the life of the contract. We don't see any impediment in that regard.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes po. Thank you, Yusek Bernie. Do we have someone from DILG also to provide their comment? Miss Annalisa, tama po ba? Do you have someone from DILG? I think we recognize someone from DILG po. Director Balao in? Yes po, ma'am. Okay. So habang wala pa siya, we can go back to her na lang po later siguro, Sir Glenn. But we already got feedback from Yusek Bernie. Okay, so just to go back, baka Sir Glenn later when we go sa responsibilities and roles ng LGUs, we can discuss that po further kasi hopefully by that time yung ating rep from DILG will be here na po. Okay, sige. Balik tayo.
Sige, but before we proceed, no, just like to emphasize and then reiterate that if we are looking into ways to guarantee or protect the WTE operators, we might as well look into the capacities and protection of the LGUs as well.
Thank you, Sir Glenn. I think may mga proposals on waste guarantees based on the position papers that were sent to us. But wala pa pong, hindi po yun na-integrate sa ating draft bill. Naka-footnote lang po siya. We can go to that discussion later when we go to sa LGUs na part po. Kasi wala pa pong decision on that. Okay? Sige po. Now, let's move on. So, are there further comments on the deletion of Roman numeral 3? Okay, now let's move on to letter G. Adopt regulations to ensure compliance with standards, criteria, and guidelines promulgated pursuant to this section. Sir Chris, question, is this still necessary po? Kasi, di ba yung pag-ensure ng compliance sa DOE, DOH, and DNR na po? At saka sa iba nating implementing agencies, Sir Chris?
Yep, I think that can be removed. That can be removed.
Okay, are there comments on the deletion of this? It's really just to make sure na clear yung ating delineation of powers between various agencies. Okay, now let's move on sa proposal ni Yusek Bernie. Siguro sir, yung suggestion niyo po, we can have a separate subsection for that. Siguro let's type it muna so that the body can comment. So there's a proposal here from ULAP na will give another role to the NSWMC for it to provide policy guidelines and assistance to LGUs on the operation of WTE facilities. Baka hindi po operation yung tamang term.
It shouldn't be operation. It shouldn't be operation.
Kasi it shouldn't be operation po.
Maybe development.
Yeah, in the development of WTE facility. Upon request po ba? Ano pong gusto nyo, Yusek Bernie? Upon request? Pero policy guidelines and assistance lang naman po. Sige. May we have comments from the body from ULAP? Provide policy guidelines and assistance to LGUs in the development of WTE facilities. If ever, of course, on whether LGUs decide to go into WTE facilities. Yusek Bernie, maybe you can explain this to us po.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Yusek Bernie.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're proposing this to expand the power of the commission so that it does not only limit itself to yung coordination, no, but to actually provide the policy guidance for LGUs who would like to pursue further yung implementation, especially if we are working on the idea of clustered LGUs. But of course, we have a counter proposal in that regard because the local government code actually provides for cooperative engagements, no, among LGUs instead of clustered.
Thank you, Yusek Bernie. Okay, so on this, provide policy guidelines and assistance to LGUs in the development of WTE facilities. Okay, no further. Let's move on to our last responsibility of NSWMC. This is just perform all other acts that are analogous to the foregoing, which are necessary and incidental to accomplish the policy objectives of this act. Comments? Okay, no further comments. Now let's move on to Section 7, role of the Department of Energy. Okay, in addition to its powers and functions under Republic Act 38, otherwise known as the Department of Energy Act of 1992 as amended, the Department of Energy shall, letter A, WTE facilities based on the energy output and determine the standards, criteria, and requirements applicable for each kind of WTE facility. 1 to RA 9136, RA 9367, and RA 9513, whichever is applicable. Okay, we have a comment that instead of the word accredit and classify, we will replace it with issue and grant necessary permits to, and comment from, okay, the comment of Dream refers to WTE facilities as an RE resource. Ano po, since we haven't settled whether WTE should be treated as an RE resource or not, siguro for the purposes of this TWG, let's try to keep the language as neutral as possible po. Kasi hindi pa natin nasisettle yon. So we want to make sure na applicable yung provisions natin, whether magde-decide na RE siya or not. Sige, let's type siguro yung proposal ng MPIC na issue and grant necessary permits to. Siguro. May we hear from DOE? Do we have people from DOE already? Is Director Mylene Kapongkol here or si Ma'am Ruby Guzman?
Yes. Hi, attorney team. Yes,
Hi,
good
Ms. Ruby.
morning. Opo. Since we have not yet finalized whether WTE would be classified as an RE resource, maybe we can have the term, kasi po magkaiba pag sa biofuels, we accredit the producers, and then for renewable energy, for biomass, we register. So magkaiba po kasi yung terminology. So we just, I suggest po na generic ano na lang, permits. Maybe okay na po siguro ako yung issue and grant necessary permits or applicable permits based on the energy output.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ruby. So our new proposal reads as issue and grant applicable permits to WTE facilities based on the energy output and determine the standards, criteria, and requirements applicable for each kind of WTE facility pursuant to RA 9136, this is the EPIRA, RA 9367, this is the Biofuels Act, and RA 9513, which is the RE Act, whichever is applicable. Do we have further comments on this po?
Madam Chair, maybe just to accommodate what Ms. Ruby had said, maybe we can add issue and grant applicable permits or registrations. There. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Mona. Are there any further comments on 7A?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lau here.
Yes, Sir
Yeah,
Chris.
let's just park this, just in case we do not categorize waste to energy as RE, then there has to be a provision that allows a separate permitting requirement, as we were discussing earlier. I just want to park this for now.
Sir Chris, I just have a question. Let's say, assuming that it's not considered RE, yung permitting niya, di ba yung energy outputs naman niya, it's either electric power, so it will be governed by 9136, kung biofuel, 9367, biogas, yun siguro yung, ano po yung concern natin? Kung anong kind of energy output or...
Wait, okay. Kasi, okay, let us assume that it's not categorized as RE. Would it fall somewhere? Maybe I'll ask DOE. Where would it fall if it doesn't fall as RE?
If it's a power plant po, if it produces, kahit na hindi siya RE, but it's a power plant, it falls under 9136 sa DOE po.
Okay, all right. Pero then the incentives, I'll go back to the incentives now. We'll just discuss that later on na lang. Yeah. When
Yes
we go
po.
to the incentives. All right.
Thank you, Commissioner Chris. So ito po ano lang, permitting lang. Maybe if there are other kinds of output na hindi covered by these laws, pwede nating i-flag yun. Kasi let's say biogas, saan po yung permitting for that?
Yeah, that's a problem right now, no? Yep. There's landfill gas, there's biogas also.
Biogas, if I may, attorney team, biogas may fall under the biomass sector. So it's under RE if it's biogas. Thank
Alright.
you.
Okay, so right now, covered naman po. But if you can flag us, if there are other outputs na hindi covered ng mga batas na to, just to make sure that there's an agency that's in charge of the permitting for that po. Yun na lang. Okay, so are there any further comments for letter A? Okay, so it now reads as issue and grant applicable permits or registrations to WTE facilities based on the energy output and determine the standards, criteria, and requirements applicable for each kind of WTE facility pursuant to Republic Act 9136, Republic Act number 9367, and Republic Act number 9513, whichever applicable. Okay, now let's move on to 7B.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Sir Chris.
Just thinking out loud lang, there are current developments in converting waste to products like naphtha, or other forms, or even syngas or naphtha, would it fall anywhere? I just want to ask DOE. Kasi technology is developing, right? What if it doesn't fall in any of this? Like naphtha. Naphtha won't fall in any of this.
It's not included. It's not cannot be considered, Christian. Alam mo naman yung naphtha cracking process. Diba? I think there's a professor here from UP that could explain that to you.
Okay, wait lang.
That's too much.
Yeah. I think the concern here is sino yung applicable na agency that will issue the permits if ever the output is not covered, it's not covered by these laws. Tama po Sir Chris at saka si Sir Glenn. Sige, Ma'am Ruby, paano po yung treatment nyo ngayon, yung sinabi ni Sir Chris? Yung syngas,
Yeah.
wala kayong ganyan ngayon.
On naphtha, I think it's a petrochemical, sa petrochemical industry po dapat. And I don't know if there's a law regarding petrochemical industries on naphtha.
Sige. Sige, ganito na lang po. We will check po kung ano yung applicable na law for petrochemicals. Tapos we'll see kung saan natin pwedeng ilagay yung permitting for that. Oo. Siguro what would be best is if we can have a catch-all na lang po if ever. Kasi of course, sabi nyo nga, Commissioner Chris, technology is evolving over time. Now, in the future, what if may ibang output na hindi covered nito? Maybe what we can do is we can just give one agency the power to issue permits for all other kinds of outputs. If that's amenable to the body. Sige po, we'll ano na lang po, we'll note that.
Ma'am Preside,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to make myself clear, ano? Kasi what's being raised a while ago is not actually refers to the emerging technology. It is actually on existing technology, which the ultimate product are plastics, no? Sa napaka-cracking process. And ang tinatanong is whether that will fall into this jurisdiction regarding that technology. So it's not actually an evolving, it's existing. And it's actually we have one in Batangas, in Barangay Simtong, Batangas City.
Okay. Sir Glenn, sige, Ma'am Ruby, yung sa Batangas sinasabi ni Sir Glenn, sa DOE ba yung permitting yan ngayon?
Not with the DOE, ma'am.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, I think the naphtha kasi is a byproduct of fuel. So it's actually a naphtha cracking plant. There are technologies. We don't have naphtha waste to naphtha yet in the Philippines. Pero siguro let's park it for now. I know this will be a big discussion. Let's park it for now and decide on it later on. Anyway, it's not here yet. Sige, I'll yield na lang. Let's park that for now so we can proceed.
Okay. Sige, thank you, Sir Chris. Okay, thank you for the comments, Commissioner Chris, Sir Glenn, at saka Ma'am Ruby. What we'll do, as suggested by Sir Chris, is we'll park this nga. The intent is really to make sure that there's an agency that's in charge of the permitting process for other possible outputs of WTE facilities, whether yung beyond what's in here at saka yung sa future technologies na po. We'll park it. Siguro assignment na lang for everyone kung kanino dapat ibigay yung responsibility for permitting kung hindi siya covered by these laws. Okay? Any other comments for letter A? Okay, no other comments. Now let's move on to letter B. Okay, letter B. Include a WTE strategy in the Philippine Energy Plan, taking into consideration the National Solid Waste Management Framework. Do we have comments on this? Okay, no further comments. And then for letter C, I just like to clarify, for letter C, this is just to make available to the public. Kasi I think we have comments na it's not within the jurisdiction of the DOE, but it's not DOE determining it, but rather it's DOE who will make available to the public yung following na information. Okay, so letter C, make available to the public, especially to potential WTE investors, local and national information on the following. Sub-Roman numeral 1, current and potential uses of WTE facilities in relation to solid waste management. Number 2, inventory of existing WTE facilities. Number 3, general feedstock characterization, and there's a proposal here in collaboration with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Tapos, number 4, status and projection of feedstock generation. Number 5, specific locations of potential feedstock and WTE facilities. For number 6 and number 7, since we already removed yung reference processing fees, we can delete this already. Kasi hindi na magdidetermine ng reference processing fees. And number 6, other relevant information. Are there comments po on what the DOE should make available to the public?
Madam Chair,
Yes. Okay. Later.
Followed by Sir Glenn.
yeah, Madam Chair, just item number 5, I just want to clarify this statement. Specific locations of potential feedstock. And if we want to retain that, it's in collaboration again with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Sige, we can add in collaboration with lines instead. Tama po